Ooh, big crowd. If half of you decide you need to leave in 2 minutes, that would be all right. A little bit nervous, so I did bring an outline. I don't know how closely I'll follow that, but I wanted just to be able to have that in case I needed to refer to it. Jesus Doesn't Care. I wasn't planning on adding this into my testimony, but what a great song. I'm here to speak with you and to share with you some experiences that I've had. Whereas they said, where you rebel and you choose to do your own thing and you know God's there and He's loving you and you're like, I really want to do my own thing for a while. I think I know how to handle my life better. I know you created the heavens and the earth, but I think I can do this and handle this on my own. And I think a lot of us, I know I did, had that attitude. And this is a good, exciting story. Some of my experiences, some of the choices I've made have not been exciting and are not good choices. But the good news is, as that song said, He's always there. He always loves you. You can come back anytime. And that's what's exciting. Through some of my struggles, I've often wondered to myself, what do people do who don't know God? What do they do? Who do they go to? A therapist? Maybe that'll help them for a while. They go to some close friends, maybe family members. If they don't have a belief system they can rely upon, I don't know what I would have done. I'm so grateful. I'm very nervous, so if I repeat things or stutter or get a little choked up at times, bear with me. But I'm so grateful that my parents minister in a church where I can feel comfortable coming to you and sharing this. This is not me. This is not my style. What I'm going to share with you tonight, probably 8 people in the world know about this. And so this is not something that I typically share a lot about myself. But I'm grateful that we're in a church where God can ask me to come, because this isn't what I'm wanting to do. I wouldn't be here if it's what I wanted to do. I would share with those 8 friends, and that would be about it. So God's asking me to be obedient, and that's something I'm trying to work on. What I'm going to share with some of you is probably going to disappoint you, let you down, and I apologize for that. And that's between you and God. And I know you'll take that to God, and whatever response you have tonight, that's between you and God. I want to thank my family for being here, loving me always. You know, when you live in a pastor's home, I'm the pastor's son if some of you haven't clued into that. Charles Wisdom, Van Wisdom, we kind of share a name. And there is a built-in insulation that you don't share with people. I think we sometimes have that in our churches anyway. You don't share the expectation of following Christ and what He has called us to do, that there's the expectation that you've got to be perfect. And a lot of us get away with it for many years. And so we don't share. And it's great to know that God has brought my family to a point where we are sharing. It's time. We've held many things in for years that we just handled on our own. And unfortunately, that's the nature of that business. There's a song, Amazing Grace, some of you know it, and when you have a reconnection with Christ, you really get to know His grace. My mom is reading a book right now. It's called What's So Amazing About Grace, and it's by an author named Philip Yancey. And in the first chapter, it defines grace, and it says, grace is nothing that we can do to make God love us more, and it's nothing we can do to make God love us less. And I'm going to read that one more time because I don't know that we get it, or at least I don't always get it. I haven't. Grace is nothing we can do to make God love us more, and it's nothing we can do to make God love us less. Who else offers that to us? We're all conditional in our relationships, and we're expecting something back. God offers grace. Whatever we do, He's not going to love us any more. He's not going to love us any less. I'm experiencing grace. It's great. It's incredible to know that some of the things I've done, He still loves me. And some of the things I'm going to share with you, I would rather you not know about me. I'd rather you know some other things about me. And I could make a list if I wanted to and share with you the things that I'd like for you to know. That's not what God's calling me to do. As I said, growing up in a pastor's home, we were missionaries in Mexico, some of you know. I was molested as a child, and at that point chose not to tell my parents about that experience. As I grew up and continued to not share with them, there were several other experiences with molestation that I experienced. This is not to make excuses about the way that I approached life, or excuses for some of the choices that I made later on, but it had an impact, and I'm wanting you to know that factored in to the way that I made choices. In the second grade, a great thing happened to me. I became a Christian at the Dalton Baptist Church. My dad was working on his PhD, and we were living in Chicago, and I decided to become a follower of Christ. That was a very good decision. I will see in later years that definitely that relationship, that connection with Christ, paid off. Once you become a child of God, as that experience allowed me when I was in the second grade, there were built-in assurances that I wasn't aware of as a second grader, that I would later see back in my life as an adult. But that one experience changed my life, and I didn't realize it as a second grader. This experience tonight might be the most important experience in my life. And so I'm trying to be obedient and share with the church family. As I experienced my the sexual abuse and grew up in a Christian home, became a Christian, I went through some doubting about my own sexual identity. What kind of a man am I? What kind of person do I want to be? And I want to say for young people and anyone who has experienced sexual molestation, if you haven't shared it with someone, find someone safe in the youth department, a Sunday school leader, your parents, talk to somebody. That's what the church is here for, to help the people who need help and to come to them and to be able to get them some assistance. As I was going through high school, playing on the tennis team, involved in normal activities, on the swim team, dating, having a good normal upbringing, getting involved in activities. My senior year, I went to 8 different proms. I mean, I was invited to several different proms around the town. We went out and bought a tuxedo. I was awarded a lot of opportunities, even though inside no one knew what was going on with me. I didn't tell any friends. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell my youth leaders. I didn't share this with anyone because I was so ashamed of things that have happened in my life and choices I was making unconsciously. But I loved the church. I was so eager to be active in church and go to youth choir and camp and Glorietta and all of those activities. And I thought, these are just struggles I'm having now. When I get older, I'll get married and I'll have kids, and this is all going to work out at one point. But I wasn't making an effort to build my relationship with Christ. I was active in the church, but I wasn't building a relationship with Christ. And in 2 Corinthians, Paul is talking about how there's a struggle, we're not sure what it is. He wants the thorn in his side to be removed, and he prays. Some of you are familiar with that. He prays for the thorn to be removed. I remember at all these youth conferences and retreats, I went down just crying and crying, knowing about some of my struggles and my self-doubt. I never told anyone what they were. It was just, I just need to get right with God, right? And for some reason, I continued with that struggle. I mean, it miraculously wasn't removed. This was a struggle that I would have to face. And I went off to college and had some great experiences there. In my senior year, I got involved with a group of friends where we started, where I started possibly accepting the fact that maybe I was gay, maybe I was a homosexual, maybe that's what these experiences led up to. Maybe these things had happened to me because that's who I was. That's what God had created me to be. I don't know if that's what, I don't have the answers about why that was my struggle. And that's not my concern, why I was struggling with it, but just where I was. Not where I was coming, but where I was. Had a lot of self-doubt about that. And although I felt a freedom to be doing things my way, there's a certain freedom that comes with that. It's a miserable freedom. It was not a freedom of, I finally feel good about who I am and I'm at peace with myself. It was I'm going to do it my own way, and if other people don't like it, well then that's their problem. Yet it was, being that I didn't share this with people, it was so private. I mean, once again, probably a different set of 8 people knew about that struggle and those experiences once again. I had the opportunity to go off to Spain, and there, no one knew I was a pastor's kid. No one knew any kind of background that I had. I could create a whole new life for myself. And I did that. And I had people who encouraged whatever choices I made. And I made some very, very bad choices. And instead of making choices that would lead me into a relationship with Christ, my choices led me farther and farther away from Him. Yet, always in the back of my mind when I was at some type of function or activity, I thought, this doesn't feel right. Something about this doesn't feel good to me. Oh, sure, let's go do this or what have you. And I would not focus on it. But in the middle of it, when you're in the middle of something and it just doesn't feel right, but you keep doing it? I don't know if any of you have experienced that. I think I've lived that. And you just keep pursuing it because you think this other way is too hard or that's too much of a challenge, and you start doubting, would Christ accept me if He knew of some of these things that I've done? Would the church accept me? I returned to Spain. It became time for me either to stay there and build a life or to come back. And of course, being very close to my family and wanting a relationship with them, I decided to return home and them still not knowing about any of these struggles. These were all things that I kept to myself. And still thinking, I'm going to get married, I'm going to have kids, this is all going to work out. One day I'm really going to do it. One day I'm really going to get my act together. Came back and I worked, first job, God placed me, and I really believe this was working with sexually abused kids. And I really clued into the fact that maybe some of this, what that happened to some of these kids, was something that happened to me. I really had always just thought, that wasn't me. I mean, I kind of had 2 different memories of myself as a child, so I really connected with the one that I liked, as a lot of us like to see ourselves in the positive light. Next job I worked with people who had terminal illnesses, and I learned a lot from those people and their urgency to want to live life. One thing I said to a lot of my patients, I said, life is not a dress rehearsal here. We've got one chance and we've got to make it work. And as I was telling them that, I thought to myself, Van, this is not a dress rehearsal. You need to get yourself right. I was meeting people from the world's standards. I was having a good time, but I was miserable. It wasn't where I wanted to be. And I had a lady that I worked with. She was a Mexican lady, and she always said to me, she said, Van, she said, eres un hijo de Dios. We always spoke Spanish to each other. She said, you're a child of God. She said, no matter what you try to do, He's not going to let you be comfortable until you're doing what He's wanting you to do. And it's so true. God doesn't care about our comfort. He cares about our character. And I think a lot of us think He cares about how comfortable and happy I am. He doesn't care about that. He cares about your character. And that was a hard concept for me to get. I found out shortly thereafter, I was working with the patients, that I had tested positive for the HIV virus. And you get, it's a slap, boom, in the face. I'm 20, whatever years old, and all of these hopes and dreams that I had once thought that I would pursue, I might not pursue these because of very, very bad choices that I made. And as that happened, you would think the natural tendency, or with some people, boy, I'm really going to get active in church. This is the way I'm going to get my life straight, because who knows how much time I have left. I did just the opposite. Whereas before, I hadn't really accepted all of my struggles and really given myself a full freedom to just enter in to that lifestyle. And I mean, the devil was telling me, well, now you definitely can't get married if you get it all together, right? And you definitely can't have kids. And you're definitely not going to probably live a long life. And you're definitely not going to be able to pursue some of your graduate dreams and some of the things you've always wanted to pursue. Who's going to want you? But that community, they deal with HIV and AIDS all the time. They're the ones that'll love and accept you. And it's been interesting. Of course, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's last summer, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. Since that diagnosis, I haven't heard from any of those friends. I haven't heard from any of them. But of course, that was the devil telling me, you're stuck in this. You've already made your bed. You need to lie in it. There's no turning back. Let's get with a group of people that you know are going to just accept you. Of course, I was still miserable, but I was trying to convince myself. As I looked back at God in my life, you know, He placed me in that job working with those kids. He placed me in that job working with the cancer and the AIDS patients so that I could see what I needed to be ministered to. It wasn't about helping these other people. It was about what I needed. And God had orchestrated all of this. Of course, came the time that I had to tell my parents. And I'm so sorry. I have great parents, and they're really cool people. I like just being around them, which makes it even harder when you disappoint them. Not only do they minister to you and does my father preach, they live this. This is the way they live at home. They're not kidding. They believe this. They're passionate about this. This isn't, they're not just here on Sundays and then they go home and do their own thing and he collects a paycheck. This is not how they live their lives. They truly live their life passionately for Christ. One of my concerns when I tested positive was, if anyone finds out about this, my dad has lost his job. The passion, the ministry that they've been called into might be jeopardized because of my bad choices. That was overwhelming to me to think about. Of course, I came home and told them, and we prayed, and they cried, and they said, we love you, and we're here for you, and it was the response that Christ would have. I mean, it really was. We had some struggles, and we had to come to some decisions, because at that point I was still wanting to do my own thing, but I just wanted their love. And one verse that my mom shared with me, and she would always speak about it whenever I would allow them to talk about this subject, because we kind of had we're not going to talk about this rule if we're going to try and get along. Philippians 1:6, it says, being confident that he who began a good work in you will carry it on unto completion until the day of Jesus Christ. Basically saying, he who began a good work in you, God, He started a good work in you when you were in second grade, when you decided to follow Him. He's not going to give up on you. You're not going to be comfortable until His work is completed, and that means returning to what you know is the plan of God. I'm sure probably some of you are thinking, this guy was raised in church, active in church. How did all of this happen to him? How did he get to this point? He had opportunities. He had experiences. He had role models in the church. He had experiences with Christ. He loved Christ, loved the church, wanted to be active, wanted to grow up and be a part, wanted to become a deacon, wanted to pursue all of the dreams that he had as a child. How did this happen to him? I don't know. We don't have the answers for that. I've made some bad choices. Experiences happened in my life. I would think, as believers, this has got to be God saying, whatever you do, I'm still here for you. You can come back. If at one point you made that decision to follow me, you're going to at one point return. And my parents always, whenever we would get together, they would always say, we're praying for you. We're praying for you. We love you. We're here for you. We're going to support you. One thing my dad said to me that made me feel so good is he said, it would be an honor for me to take care of you if you ever got sick. He said, if you ever get too sick, to take care of yourself. He said, I want to take care of you. I want that honor. And I thought, when I first found out, I thought, they're not going to want to do this. This isn't right for me to ask them. And I never asked them. He volunteered that. And I thought, isn't that just what Christ would do? Wouldn't he just come and say, this is an honor for me to take care of you? I didn't get that. But he offered that. Last summer, I was in a job that I loved, still semi-miserable, of course, but telling myself that I was doing well in a career, I had opportunities. I had moved home for a couple of months to save some money because I was going to buy a house. And I thought, I'm doing well with my HIV. I haven't had any problems. My company was bought out. 2 weeks later, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease, which is not related to the HIV, which is an interesting twist in itself, which I'll touch on in a minute. Then I lost my job. All of the top people were fired. The ones who were told that our jobs would be secured, they were fired. And then 2 weeks later after that, I was on the chemotherapy chair, losing my hair, being hooked up to these machines, to the IV therapy, thinking, how did this happen in a month? I was about to buy a house. I was healthy, exercising, moving on with my life, making plans. Now I have no job, no hair, no opportunities, and I'm in this chair. And I'll tell you what God did with that gift of allowing me. I don't believe he causes these things. I think he could stop it, obviously, but he allowed that experience to happen. It was the first time my family could say, pray for Van in an open forum with specifics. He needs your prayers. And the church has responded wonderfully. Those that do know about what I'm even sharing tonight, I've gotten cards and letters and love, phone calls, and I have seen what I saw as a child, that as Christians we're asked to be walking billboards of God's love, and you guys have done it. And that's why I'm here tonight, because I wouldn't share this. This is not what I want people to know about me. I know that I run the risk now every time that one of you see me in the church. That's the pastor's son, that guy that struggled with being gay, that has HIV. I know that. I know that's an option tonight. I know some of you won't think that, and some of you might have other thoughts, and that's your response, and that's between you and God. But last summer when I went through these losses, it got down to pretty much just me and God. There wasn't a whole lot left that could be taken away, that I would have to lose. And I would sit there, and I wasn't fearful of dying. My fear became, I'm never going to experience the great, abundant life that God wants me to have because I want to do things my own way. That's it. You know, it wasn't, I better get my life together or some real bad things are going to happen. It was, man, I love you. What are you doing, guy? I want to have a relationship with you. I want you to be happy. I want you to be joyful. I want you to go to bed at night, and every time you get a cold, I don't want you to feel guilty about getting the cold or a flu because you caused this, because of some behaviors that you had. I want you to have peace. And I thought, that's what he wants. He wants me to be happy. I've been chasing this other way, and he's been standing here the whole time saying, just turn around. I'm waiting for you. I love you. One thing I was thinking about as I was wanting to prepare this testimony with you is when I was in tennis and we would play in tournaments and you would start warming up and then you would start your first game. If the ball went out or the serve wasn't good, If you felt comfortable and friendly with the other person, you'd say, go ahead and take a do-over. Or if you hit it out and you weren't warmed up, you say, can I take a do-over? I wasn't warmed up, or that shot was way out, I wasn't concentrating. Can I take a do-over? And in golf, it's called a mulligan. My dad's a big golfer. And in golf, it's called a mulligan. You get to take an extra swing. And I thought, that's what God offers all of us. At any time in our lives, he says, you can take a do-over, and I don't care. I don't care where you've been. I don't care what you've done. I just care about you. Take a do-over. And just as easily as you would do it on a tennis court. I wasn't focused, God. That wasn't where I wanted. That wasn't where I should have gone. God says, take a do-over. I love you. And you can do that at any time. Since that time, since I've taken a do-over and rededicated my life, it's so nice to go to bed at night and feel peace and feel his grace. And these songs that people are talking about and singing and the stories you hear at church, they make sense. They make sense. And they made sense a long time ago, and somehow I lost that. Sadly enough, with my do-over, as with all of our do-overs, is there are consequences in life. My consequences, the one that I'm very aware of, is my health status. I have to constantly be aware of, am I getting a cold? What is this next problem? Why can I not run a 4-minute mile anymore? Why can I not do these things that I could at one time challenge myself to do? And now sometimes I'm happy to, get up and go and schedule my life around chemotherapy appointments. Why is that? That's the consequences of making bad choices, of sin. And gratefully, with the do-over, I have someone to go to now, don't I? Whereas before, I had all these people around me saying, oh, you're okay. Do what you need to do, follow your heart. You're a good person. And I'll tell you, I needed those people in those times to get me through some real rough times. But there are some consequences of the bad choices that I've made. I don't know what the future holds for me. I don't know what opportunities I'll have. 5 years ago, I planned my life on a 65, 70, 80-year-old scale. That's what I was planning on. Now I kind of do a 6-month scale. That's the reality of my life. I had talked to one of our members about applying to law school at one time, and I don't know if those are realities for me. Maybe they are, and maybe those are fears that I have, and God's going to give me a peace about what my future holds. I know it's time for me to stop doing what I want to do and start doing what God wants me to do. My dad and I met with a gentleman this week about starting a ministry sponsored by a Baptist association, reaching people who struggle, who have family members, who themselves struggle with homosexuality or sexual abuse, or if they can't come to the church, if we can't come to each other and say, hey, I'm having a tough time here. If we can't do that in the church, they're going to go other places. I've been to other places. And those people tell you some nice things at the beginning, but it's not that great towards the end. Like I said, haven't gotten a phone call from these people. People that have said, we're your great friends and we care about you. Haven't heard from them. I want to thank all of you for coming tonight and loving me regardless. That song was great. That was, God doesn't care where you're coming from. I think the title of it was Jesus Doesn't Care, wasn't it? And when I saw that in the bulletin, I thought, what? I think that's a typo. And he doesn't care where you're coming from. And I'm so grateful that I have a church and people that love me. My dad's job's not in jeopardy. Those were real concerns I had. And I thought, if these people ever know about me, what are they going to think? Are they still going to care about me? Are they still going to think I'm a nice guy? Are they still going to want to walk up and hug me? Are they going to be fearful when I'm talking to their child? Or will these be the things? And when I got to church, I saw some of you, and I thought, I love these people. I don't want them to know these things about me. I thought maybe I could just walk out and we'll have a guest speaker. Another guest speaker. But that's not what God wants me to do. If there are any of you that want to talk, have concerns, have family members, friends, and you want someone to talk to, I'm available. It's nice to come home. And I'm so grateful we have a God that shows his love and says, come home whenever you want. And I, on top of that, have a church that says, come home whenever you want. And a choir and family members, relatives, aunts and uncles. And they say, we love you. We don't care. Just like the song, Jesus Doesn't Care. And a song that meant a lot to me as a child. I think of a lot now. I'm not really worried about my future. I've got God, don't I? I have a relationship with Christ. I don't have anything to worry about. But one song that stands out in my mind is the song Because He Lives. I'm going to sing just the chorus for you. I don't want you to focus on the voice or the note or the tone. Just the words, because I think they mean a lot. Because He lives, I can face tomorrow. Because He lives, all fear is gone. Because I know He holds the future. And life is worth the living just because He lives. Thank you.